recording. Perfect. And then, okay. So can we start off with your first and last name and your title?
Yep, Allison Ojeda, head women's tennis coach.
How has Title IX impacted women's sports since you've been a coach?
So I started coaching in 2002, graduated from Tennessee in 2002, started coaching right away, and I think the impact's been tremendous all across the board. I think you're seeing players, women's soccer for instance, women's softball, you're seeing so many female athletes in those sports now. And when I was a little kid, for instance, I grew up playing soccer. I stopped playing soccer because I wanted to play professionally at something, and that wasn't an option then. Now it is, so who knows what would have happened if I grew up now instead of 40 years ago. But yeah, so I think that you're seeing athletic sports teams all across the board starting to kind of even out. You've got a lot more females competing and in multiple sports. Sure.
Just being a female coach, how does that feel? Do you feel empowered or?
I don't know if empowered is I feel lucky to be at Tennessee because I think women's sports now compared to 20 years ago, and you can compare that to 20 years prior to, that has changed and evolved so much. And I think that the Tennessee Lady Vols with Joan Cronin as athletic director, with Pat Summitt helping to lead everything, they really made an impact in women's sports. And so to be able to be at the University of Tennessee, this isn't new. It's not new for women's tennis to be treated the way we're treated here and have the facilities that we have and the resources that we do. We're able financially to pay to have a great staff. So that's not new here, whereas that's new at a lot of universities. Billie Jean King in tennis specifically, she made a humongous impact in our sport specifically. She also helped out with women's soccer. I think that was the 98 team, 99 soccer team, won World Cup with Mia Hamm, and the famous shirt comes off. But she helped a lot with that stuff, and so for us, when it comes to tennis, we've been feeling it for a long time. I think all across the board, you're seeing massive growth in women's sports everywhere. But at Tennessee, luckily we've had incredible support. Coach Fulmer was here back with Joan and Pat as well. So and they worked really closely together actually when he was coaching. So now under his leadership, same thing. He wants every sport to win, not just the men's teams.
So previously there was Mike Patrick was the head coach of tennis. Do you believe that, or have you seen a difference, do you think, in between having a male head coach versus a female head coach here at Tennessee while coaching tennis?
It's a good question.
Or what different styles, I guess?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it has anything to do with gender, just maybe personality. So I played under Mike Patrick when he was here. His wife at the time was Sonia Hahn Patrick. They were co-head coaches. Part of the reason I came to Tennessee, aside from the incredible community, is I wanted to play under a female coach. I never had that, and I felt like in college I wanted to experience that, but I also wanted the comfort of having a male coach because that's what I had always had. Mike obviously provided that, and Sonia provided her knowledge. So for me, we had both a female and a male head coach. So nothing was really ever gender specific. If anything, Mike was nothing against Mike, but Mike was the one that was going to be the more calm of the two and more emotional and motherly one. Sonia was the hardcore discipline, you better take care of this or you're running one. So from that aspect, in terms of stereotype, the roles would have actually been flipped. Mike is like a father to me. He's been a mentor to me. He's still one of my best friends and someone I speak with 3 or 4 times a week. So I don't think anything as far as having a female head coach or a male head coach has necessarily changed anything. I think age probably has a little bit. I'll be 40 soon, which is 20 years closer to these girls' age than he is. And so I think that's probably where some differences have come up over the last few years. So I can understand the change in technology, the change in social media, the way we have to recruit now compared to 20 years ago. Those are the things that I think are changing. And 20 years from now, like we're gonna need to have somebody else who's younger that understands it, or at least have an assistant coach who's closer to their age, because the challenges that 18 to 22-year-olds face day to day is very different than what it was 20 years ago. And 20 years from now, we'll be saying the same thing.
As a head coach, has there been an instance where you feel as though you've inspired young women or young girls, or anything like that? Do you feel inspired? Do you feel like you're an inspiring figure?
Yeah, I do. And that's not something I probably would have ever thought twice about, but as I travel around the country recruiting, or as I speak to our recruits' moms, they actually make sure to say that, and which is really nice to hear, but they're very specific with, we want to make sure that our daughter is playing for a strong female presence. I wouldn't have necessarily said that about myself, but in the whole scheme of things, that's what it is. So.
Since coaching positions are typically male dominant, was it intimidating first becoming a head coach, or just being a coach in general?
No. I've always grown up around guys. I had about 19 cousins, and I was the one girl out playing football and soccer with those guys all the time. So you got pushed around, in my opinion, we actually were a little bit tougher back then, simply because we grew up playing with the boys. So I love cutting up with the guys. I love throwing a football around. So for me, that's my comfort zone, more so than going shopping with my mom and sisters. So jumping into the head coaching world, and even as an assistant, just coaching in general, it is primarily males that are out there coaching. But again, I think I'm fortunate in the way I was brought up. I don't see things as men or women. It's just, you're either good at your job or you're not. And what I do see is we've got Jared, who's our assistant coach, and it's important to me to have his personality. Again, whether he's a guy or girl, I don't think that part matters, but his personality, he can go out and cut up with the girls and joke around, but he's also respected. And so I think personalities matter, guy or girl. For me personally, I don't see that as a challenge. I do have other friends in the industry, and they do see it as a challenge. Where they've seen it is if there's a director of tennis who's a male, then they don't feel like they can go and share exactly what it is they want. I don't know if it's because they're a male, or I can't speak on their behalf, but I do know that is a real situation out there, a problem.
Honestly, you cover everything that I wanted to ask. Well, I guess one last question.
Yeah.
Do you think, I know you mentioned that you see that it's not really, it doesn't matter if you're a woman or a man, as long as you do the job well. But have you ever experienced this expectation of doing more or having to prove more as a head coach?
For sure.
Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah. But as an assistant coach just as much as a head coach, and as a student athlete who grew up in a Mexican-American family as opposed to some of the kids who grew up in a country club scene. So I think there are a whole bunch of different reasons I've felt that in the past. I was always smaller than everybody else, so there are 1,000 different reasons other than just being a female. But I think it forces us to figure out who we are as a human being, and you're either going to find a way to ultimately win and persevere, or you're always going to have an excuse as to why you can't do something. And for our family growing up, there was never any excuses. It's just, here's the situation, how are we going to problem solve and figure out a way to move forward. So again, I'm lucky to have the upbringing that I did have, but yeah, every day, look, I want to win a championship here, and so does every other coach on campus. So no matter what, every day I'm wanting to prove myself that we can do that.
Any final thoughts or anything you want to leave off with?
Yeah, I think final thoughts. I love that women are getting more opportunities now. You know, I think you can see there's a lot of head coaches on our campus that Coach Fulmer's given opportunities to, and I think that's important. I think, again, I do think that you should hire whoever is the best person for the job, because ultimately the student athletes want to win, the conference wants to win, University of Tennessee wants to win. So that's, to me, we want to make sure that we're doing everything that we can to win. With that said, if a female can do it, I think that's fantastic that they're getting opportunities. And I think we're actually starting to get to the point where we have more women in coaching now, and you have women that are starting to have babies and trying to figure out, okay, how do I manage being a mom, how do I manage being a wife and a coach to these 8 girls who are giving everything that they have to be successful here. So I do think that we're starting to face some new challenges, and I'm excited about them. Yeah.
Awesome.
Good?
Thank you.
You bet. Big time.
Knocked it out.
Big time.
Hard act to follow this one.
I want to run to go get some stuff for the dogs, but now I'm like excited to hear what you have to say.
Yeah.
So we're gonna